Some shooters want you to feel like a machine, but Ready or Not wants you to feel pressure. This is not Call of Duty, this is not Battlefield, nothing like that. This is not the kind of shooter where you sprint into a room, snap onto 3 enemies, reload, and move on like nothing happened. In fact, one of the first things this game does to tell you what it is all about, it is to remove the sprint button completely. And honestly, that tells you everything you need to know. Because Ready or Not is a game that wants you to slow down, think, check every room, watch every corner, and treat every mission like one wrong move could ruin the whole thing. And sometimes it does. So after playing it on PC with AI teammates, you could even go solo or play with real life multiplayer teammates, but I played with AI controlled teammates. And the big question is this, is Ready or Not actually a great tactical shooter? Or is it just a cool idea that gets a bit too much after a while? If you like game reviews like this that break down how a game actually feels to play, drop a like, subscribe, and let's get into it. So for my first impressions, Ready or Not originally launched in early access in 2021, then got its full release in 2023, and I played this on the PC Steam version with AI teammates as mentioned earlier before, and straight away, the first thing that stood out to me was just how different it felt from most shooters. Visually, it can remind you a bit of games like Call of Duty or Battlefield. The graphics are strong, the weapons look good, the lighting looks modern, and at first glance you might think, okay, this is going to be another military style shooter. But the second you actually start playing, you realize this is a completely different type of game. This is much slower, much more tactical, much more serious. You are not flying around the map looking for kills, you are moving room by room, checking doors, peeking corners, looking for traps, managing civilians, managing suspects, and trying not to get shot from some angle you forgot to watch out for. And for me, it definitely took a little bit of time to click. Even though I had watched a bunch of tips and tricks videos on YouTube before playing this, I still had to get hands-on with it before it really made sense. The tutorial helps, but only to a point. It teaches you the basics, but I do not think it fully prepares you for how tense and methodical the real missions actually are. At its core, Ready or Not is a mission-based tactical shooter where you play as a SWAT team leader. So mission to mission, you are going into different situations like hostage rescues, raids, bomb threats, that kind of thing. Your main job is usually to bring order to the situation by stopping suspects, securing civilians, collecting evidence, and finishing any mission-specific objectives. Now, if you simplify it, yes, the game does repeat itself a bit. A lot of missions come down to the same basic idea: go in, deal with the bad guys, save the innocent guys, secure the area. But what stops it from feeling exactly the same every single time is the tension of not knowing what is waiting behind the next door. That is where the game really works, because even if the main goal sounds familiar, the actual moment-to-moment gameplay can still feel stressful in a good way. One room might be empty, one room might have a civilian, one room might have an armed suspect ready to fire the second you open the door. A door might even be booby-trapped. So the game keeps you on edge pretty much the whole time. When you complete a mission cleanly, it feels very good. The game grades you at the end of each mission, with S rank being the best, and while I was not constantly chasing perfect scores, I can definitely say it feels satisfying when a mission goes well. On some of the harder missions, honestly just finishing the mission alive felt rewarding enough. The grading system goes from S, which is being the best, then A being second best, B being third best, and then it goes all the way down the letters to F. F also being the worst, and that is usually where you fail the mission really, to be honest. But while the tension is strong enough in the game, the structure does get repetitive after a while. You are still doing a lot of the same kind of slow clearing, same kind of room entries, same kind of cautious movement. If you love that, you will probably want more of it, but if you are not completely in love with that loop, it can start to feel a bit draining. That definitely happened to me towards the latter part of the game. Now let's talk gunplay and combat. And when it comes to shooting, because obviously with any first-person shooter, people want to know whether the combat actually feels good. And the answer here is yes, but not in the usual flashy shooter way you are used to. The gunplay in Ready or Not feels heavier and stiffer than something like Call of Duty or Battlefield. And that is clearly on purpose. The guns feel like they have real weight to them. Full automatic guns have a lot of kick to them. Semi-automatic feels much easier to control. Enemies can go down in a few shots, and because the game is slower, every bullet feels more serious. I, to be honest, most of the time, or about 99% of the time to be exact, use semi-auto. Like I said, it takes a few shots for the enemy to go down, and it's easier to control, so I just use semi-auto on pretty much every run-through. And also, this is not the kind of shooter where you are constantly being fed hit markers and flashy feedback every second. It feels more grounded than that. When shots come your way, the game does a good job of making you panic. Your screen reacts, your vision starts to feel off, You suddenly feel vulnerable, and because enemies can fire from angles you are not expecting, firefights feel properly threatening. That is one thing I will give this game a lot of credit for. Gunfights do not feel like fun little action breaks. They feel like moments where things have gone wrong and you need to fix the situation quickly. Now the interesting thing is, even though the shooting itself is satisfying, Ready or Not is not really a game about enjoying gunfights in the same way as a normal first-person shooter. It is more about trying to control the situation before they turn into a mess. The game wants you to use commands to force surrender, use tools, and bring suspects in alive where possible. That gets you better grades, but in the moment, there were definitely times where I just felt like, no, this enemy is about to shoot at me, I am not waiting around, so I just fired the first bullet. And just hope for the best that he stays alive and I can arrest him. Usually they stay alive and you can arrest them, but sometimes they die, and then obviously what can you do? And that kind of sums up the whole game really. It gives you rules and structure, but in the actual pressure of a mission, survival takes over. And when it comes to tactical mechanics, this is the part where Ready or Not either wins you completely or loses you. Because the tactical side of the game is not fake, it is not just there to make the game look deep, it actually matters. The best example is the mirror gun. This lets you look under a door to see what is on the other side. Such a simple tool, but it changes everything. Instead of blindly opening doors and hoping for the best, you are gathering info first. Is there an enemy in there? Is there a civilian? Is there a trap? Or is the room clear? That one tool makes you think before acting. Then on top of that, you have the squad commands. You can tell your teammates, be it multiplayer teammates or even AI teammates, to stack up, split on a door, open and clear, throw a flashbang, breach, hold position, cover certain angles, all that kind of good stuff. At first it can feel like a lot. You start off with a command wheel, but I wasn't really a fan of it. But when I saw online that it could change into a grid style layout, that's what I did. And to be honest, that felt much easier to use. And once I got used to it, it became one of the strongest parts of the game. Because when everything comes together, it feels brilliant. You check the room with the mirror gun, you decide what is needed, you get your team into position, you flash the room, move in, secure the suspects, restrain them, collect evidence, and move on. When that whole sequence works properly, Ready or Not feels exactly like the SWAT game it wants to be. That is where the game is at its best. It really makes you feel like you are not just playing a shooter, but leading an operation. Now, to be clear, I did not use every single tool the game gives you. I mainly stuck to the things that worked for me, like the mirror gun, flashbangs, stingers sometimes, and my main weapon setup. But that is also part of the game's strength. It gives you room to approach situations in different ways. You do not have to use every system all the time, but the options are there if you want them. When it comes to the realism in this game is one of the biggest selling points, but it is also one of the reasons some people will bounce off it. Because yes, the realism adds tension, but sometimes it also makes the game feel clunky. The movement is slow, deliberately slow might I add. You are not meant to rush anyways, you are meant to clear carefully and think before moving. That absolutely helps the game feel more grounded, and it does make every room feel tense, but it can also start to feel heavy when you are repeating missions or when you fail late and have to do it all again. And that is really the key thing with Ready or Not. If you are the kind of player who enjoys slow, serious, methodical gameplay, this will probably feel immersive. It might even feel immersive in general for anybody. But if you are the kind of player who wants freedom, speed, and action, this will probably feel restrictive. For me, I could see both sides. Early on, that realism was one of the more interesting things about the game. Later on, it started to feel like part of the reason the game became a bit exhausting. As mentioned a couple of times before, I must reiterate that I played only with AI teammates in this playthrough. I mean, again, you can play solo and you can play with real-life friends in a multiplayer environment. But this is big for the review, as I want to make it clear that I only played with AI teammates. And overall, I would say the AI teammates are pretty useful. Once you understand the commands and how to use them, they do follow orders properly and they do help a lot. If you tell them to stack up, clear, use a grenade, hold up position, they generally do what they are supposed to do, for example. They make the game feel a lot better as a solo player because even though you are technically playing alone, you still feel like you are leading a proper team rather than just being abandoned. But they are not perfect, these AI teammates. There were definitely moments where they got in the way, especially around doorways, and that can be annoying when you are supposed to be the leader. You do lose AI teammates through death and through other things. They do start to feel stressed and whatnot. When you do that, you do have to replace them temporarily. or if they die, you do have to replace them permanently with other AI teammates. So it's not a matter of if you lose a teammate that say is gone, you will lose them for that specific mission, but you always can replace them, and you can replace them with an unlimited amount of AI teammates, and each of these teammates have different attributes that can help in a mission. Still, overall, I think the squad system is one of the better parts of the game. It makes you feel in control, and when the commands start becoming second nature, it adds a lot to the experience. And when it comes to the mission design and atmosphere, the maps themselves are believable and detailed. You have clubs, penthouses, hotels, complexes, all sorts of environments that fit the type of situation the game is throwing you into. They are not the kind of maps I will personally remember years later in the way I remember a great open world location. Well, they do their job well. What matters more is that the layouts feel unpredictable. There are multiple entry points, different floors, awkward corridors, random room connections, weird sightlines, and because enemy positions can change between runs, the game does keep you guessing. Even if you replay a mission, you cannot just switch off your brain and expect everything to be in the same place. For example, the college bomb mission is probably the best example of this. Without spoiling it, that was easily one of the most intense moments in the game for me. You have a time limit, 2 bombs to disarm, enemies to deal with, hostages under threat, and the bomb locations can change between attempts. Basically, in the mission, obviously you have to disarm 2 bombs within 10 minutes, whilst at the same time trying to kill enemies, because while you're trying to look for them bombs and disarm them, enemies were killing hostages at the same time. So that was one of the missions where you can't go in slow. I was literally just going room to room, trying to look for enemies and disarm and look for the bombs. That mission really captures what Ready or Not does best. It turns pressure all the way up and forces you to balance speed with control. Atmosphere is another area where the game does very well. The quietness of it all helps so much. Most of the time you are not hearing some big dramatic soundtrack trying to force tension. The tension comes from the silence actually, the footsteps, the sudden gunfire, the screams, the uncertainty. That makes the game feel serious and uncomfortable in the way it probably should. And overall, the tone is very grounded. This game is not trying to be funny or over the top. It takes itself very seriously, and that suits the whole experience. Now, Ready or Not is not a story-heavy game in the normal sense. This is not the kind of game where you are playing for big character arcs or loads of cutscenes. It is much more mission-based, but there is still a wider sense of a world here. The game is set in the fictional city of Los Sueños, which is basically Los Angeles, you might have guessed, and the missions do feel like they are showing you different parts of a city that is in a bad state. So while each mission mostly stands on its own, there is still a larger feeling that all of this is connected to a wider breakdown in the city. So I would not call it a story-driven game, but I would say it has enough world and enough mission context to make what you are doing feel meaningful. You are not just dropped into random maps for no reason, and this game is hard. Not fake hard, not cheap hard, just proper challenging. Sometimes it can feel punishing, especially when you fail late in mission and have to restart from the beginning, but most of the time I felt like the game was punishing my mistakes, not just being unfair for the sake of it. And that is important, because there were moments where I felt annoyed, but when I thought about why I died, it usually came back to me making the wrong move, rushing a room, not checking properly, not using the right tactics, or not reacting quickly enough. The problem is, even if the game is being fair, it does not stop failure from being frustrating. If you spend 20 minutes slowly working through a mission and then die near the end, starting all over again hurts. There are no checkpoints to save you, and while I understand why the game is built like that, it definitely adds to the fatigue over time. The learning curve is also pretty steep, I felt. I do think a lot of new players will feel overwhelmed. This is not the kind of FPS you just casually pick up and instantly understand. You can learn it, definitely, but it takes time for me. Visually, the game looks great. I played it on a very high-end PC, so naturally that helps. But still, the environments, lighting, textures, and general detail all look excellent. The game feels modern, polished, and serious in the way it presents itself. Performance for me was very strong overall too. I had some screen tearing issues during my playthrough, but after changing settings on my side, that improved. So I cannot fully put that on the game itself. Outside of that, performance was stable and technically the game felt polished. So from a presentation and technical point of view, Ready or Not is in a good place. So when it comes to personal enjoyment, did I enjoy it? Now this is where it gets interesting. And yes, I did enjoy it, especially at the beginning. At first, the game felt fresh, it felt different, it felt tense, it felt rewarding. I liked the concept, I liked the tactical side, I liked how committed it was to doing its own thing instead of copying every other shooter. But later on, it did start to wear on me. Not because it suddenly became bad, but because the repetition and the slow pace started to feel a bit too much for me personally. I was more hooked in the first part of the game, but the later part, I was more pushing through, I felt. And I think that is the fairest way to put it. This is a game I definitely respect. I respect what it is trying to do, and I respect how well it sticks to that vision. But did I love every minute of the full experience? No, not really. So overall, Ready or Not is a very immersive tactical shooter that fully understands what it wants to be. It is tense, serious, methodical, and genuinely different from most FPS games out there right now, if not every single FPS game out there right now. Tactical mechanics are strong, the squad commands are useful, the atmosphere is excellent, and when everything clicks, it really does make you feel like you are leading a dangerous SWAT operation. But it is also a game that can feel repetitive, exhausting, and frustrating if you are not fully bought into that style of play. So for me, this is not one of those games I would recommend to everyone. This is a game for a specific type of play. If you love realism, slow pacing, tactical planning, room clearing, and shooters that actually make you think before acting, there's a very good chance you will love Ready or Not. If you're more into fast action, casual fun, or just relaxing while you play, this is probably not for you at all. And that is the main thing I think people need to know before buying it. This is not Call of Duty, this is not Battlefield. This is about as far from run and gun as a first-person shooter can get while still being a shooter. Who is this game for, really? Ready or Not is best for patient players, players who enjoy taking the time, players who like tactical shooters, strategy, pressure, and serious tone. Players who like the idea of thinking their way through a mission instead of just shooting their way through it. But if you are someone who wants to have quick fun, constant movement, and a more casual FPS experience, I think there's a very real chance you'll bounce off this fast. So my final opinion is this. Ready or Not is an excellent concept, executed very well, but it is only going to fully land for players who would generally enjoy its slow, tense, tactical style. And for everyone else, it might end up being a game you admire more than a game you actually want to keep playing. Now, if you enjoy this review, like the video, subscribe, and let me know in the comments, is Ready or Not the kind of tactical shooter you love, or is it a bit too much for you?